Okay, we're live.
Wonderful.
Okay, this is Willie Jones, and I'm president of Women for Progress, and you've tuned in to another edition of Women for Progress Radio. And tonight we have our Women for Progress Roundtable. Our executive producer has been doing a wonderful job, so because when we don't have a specific guest and topic, she corrals some of the amazing women within this organization to come to the table and have a conversation on the issues that not only impact women but impact families and communities throughout the state of Mississippi. So tonight we have another roundtable with us tonight, and I'm so excited to have these incredible women, and we're going to talk about a variety of things. Of course, our goal tonight and charge that's been given to us by our executive producer, of course, is engaged and rally the voters to the poll for November 3rd. But we're going to do that in a few creative ways around dialogue and some of the things that we need to talk about. So first, let me let each of you introduce yourselves, and very briefly. And a lot of the questions we're going to be talking about tonight, just be cognitive of the time that we're going to have, and try to keep your responses. We don't have any limits on the round table, but we just want to be aware that we want to cover several issues, and we have a group of women here. So I'm going to say, Sharon, if you start introducing yourself, and we'll go from the bottom to the top. Yeah.
Oh, very, very good. Thank you so much, Willie, for inviting me to share today. I'm so excited. We only have a few more days before election. I am a local attorney, associate general counsel at Baptist Healthcare Corporation. I work from Jackson, and I lead the legal services on behalf of Baptist Corporation for the state of Mississippi. I'm also serving as the National Bar Association Women Lawyers Division Chair, and I'm enjoying that. Plus, I'll be serving on Tuesday, Election Day, as an attorney for One Voices, as well as for the National Bar Association's Election Protection Program. I will be manning the phones and will be addressing any legal issues that arise at the polling places. I look forward to the discussion this evening.
Right. Great. Wonderful. Miss Williams?
Sorry, I've got 4 devices in front of me.
Okay.
Pick the right one to unmute. Good evening, everybody. My name is Felicia Brown Williams. I'm the Mississippi State Director for Planned Parenthood Southeast Advocates, based here in Jackson, and I'm very excited to talk to y'all tonight about the importance of getting out on Tuesday, if not before.
Okay. Dr. Thompson?
Hi, I'm Erica Thompson with Magnolia Medical Foundation, and I serve as the Executive Director and Founder of Magnolia Medical Foundation, where we exist to address health disparities throughout the state of Mississippi.
Wonderful. And Miss Angelique?
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Angelique. I'm currently a lobbyist and over government relations with Mississippi Institutions of Higher Learning. And I have just announced my candidacy for City Council Ward 2. So I'm in a new role now. I'm a candidate.
Okay, wonderful. That's exciting. Wow. I like when we get fresh news on the Women for Progress radio show. And ladies, I see a message telling me that it's preparing live. So just in the event that we're not live at this very moment, we are recording live. We are live on all of our podcast networks, which is iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker Radio, and all of those things. But I do have a backup recording right now, just in the event that look like there's some internet issues. I'm recording from home today, and you know how that goes. So, in just an event that folks are not listening to us live, we will broadcast this recording immediately after the show for those who might have missed us looking live and cute and in person and everything. So thank you all so much for joining us tonight. And I want to start by giving a little information. I want to share a few resources. I personally am telling people to go to vote411.org. This is a website that was created by the League of Women Voters, who have been around an extremely long period of time. And we've vetted this website. It is excellent. There's another website called vote.org, which I think is just as successful. I do like the format of vote411.org better. The format of the ballot I believe it to be extremely much more friendlier in the format that it's in. It's easier to read. I like the easy access of it. It does give us, to me, a little bit more detail and information than the vote.org. But both of them, you can put in your address where you're located. It'll give you all your polling location, give you a specific ballot for your particular polling location, and information on the initiatives that are out there. So for those who want to share that information, so folks know where to go, if their polling location has changed, you can even check your voter registration status, all of that information on both of these sites, vote411.org and vote.org. So those are great resources. Of course, you can always go to your Secretary of State website at sos.ms.gov, sos.ms.gov/elections, and all of that information is there also. I always like to give these third-party resources because sometimes the access is just a little bit friendlier, and we want to make the process extremely easy than others. I did print off my particular ballot for my location, and I just want to review some of the things that are on the ballot this year. Of course, the U.S. President, U.S. Senate. There's a U.S. Senate race. There's a U.S. House District 2 race. State Supreme Court District 1, Place 1. State Supreme Court District 1, Place 2. And the Mississippi flag. The Mississippi Initiative 65 and 65A. And then there's another initiative, Mississippi Remove Electoral Vote Requirement and Establish Runoff for Gubernatorial and State Office Elections. And I will expand on that a little bit later on in the program. And we'll talk about a little bit more of these initiatives. So you there's some little funny things you need to look for there on these initiatives. They put a few obstacles in our way that doesn't give you transparency, and we're going to talk about that a little bit so that we can remind you of all those things. Ladies, if there are any voting resources that you all would like to share that you want voters to be able to go to. And Felicia, you're shaking your head, so let's start with you.
Yes, so Planned Parenthood Southeast Advocates is part of a coalition of organizations. There's, I think, 21 of us that are working on a variety of things, but one of those is to make sure that people have access to all the information they need to cast their ballot, including two of the ballot initiatives that you mentioned. So the website is msyourvotematters.com. The organizations that are collectively supporting this effort, it's the AFL-CIO, the ACLU, Children's Defense Fund, MAE, which is the Mississippi Association of Educators, the Black Women's Roundtable, Mississippi Votes, the NAACP, the Center for Justice, One Voice, SPLC. It's a whole host of us. I probably missed a couple of folks in there, but we are collectively working to support the second ballot initiative, number 47, and then the flag referendum. So you can see there's a sample, just a sample ballot for those two referendums there if folks want to take a look at it. And I'm happy, when we get to a place to dig in more on those, to share more, but that's a great place that folks can go to just to look and see what that will look like on their ballot.
Okay. Anyone else?
Well, I know if we have any problems on Election Day, I've been working really closely with LaToya Thompson from the Democratic Party, and she's working with the Stacey Abrams Fair Fight program. And I'll send out that number later. But if you have any problems, or if you see any machines down, or you see any type of fraudulent activity, please give them a call on Election Day, and they will make sure someone is sent out to that precinct.
Okay, Dr. Thomas, do you have any health-related sites or information you want to share with people about being safe getting to the polls?
The main thing that I really want want to stress, and it will also be provided at most of at the polls as well, is to make sure that we're wearing our masks. Still make sure that we're protecting ourselves and taking precautions, and still to remind people that they still have the option of early voting. And so if that is something that they're interested in doing prior to November the 3rd. But the main thing is to vote, and also to just let them know that there are free rides and transportation. And I will put the number in the chat so that we can give that at the end. But in case anyone needs a ride to the polls, that is also available for free. So please get out and vote.
Wonderful. And I have confirmed that we are now live on Facebook in addition to our recording, still using it as a backup just in case we go out tonight. So I want to get right to our conversations and talk a little about some of the issues that impact us here locally and on a statewide. We know that when we go to the polls, we're not just voting for a particular candidate. There's something that moves us. There's some type of engagement. There's some type of things that are important to us that drives us to get to the polls, because we know when we get there, we're giving our voice to those particular issues that we feel good about or that are important to us and our families. So I want to open this question to the entire roundtable tonight is, what are your hopes and concerns for your family, community, and your country right now?
Well, I'll start,
Okay.
Mrs. Jones. I mean, I'm very excited about this election coming up because we have, the opportunity to elect our first Black U.S. Senator. And for my children, I mean, this is important to see some people that look like them that will come out and represent us in D.C., along with Benny Thompson on the ballot. And then we also have the opportunity to elect, our Mississippi Supreme Court Justice, Judge Westbrook. So another opportunity to have the first Black African American woman in those leading roles. And, when you get to the Supreme Court, this is oftentimes your last opportunity to be heard. And to have that somebody in front of you that you don't have to explain what the plight of being Black in Mississippi is. She just understands it and knows it. It's important to have people in those critical roles that understand us. And so I'm excited about going out to vote on those two candidates. And then also about the Electoral College and get rid of that old Jim Crow law that prevents a lot of us from being able to win seats. So this is very important to me. I'm raising 2 Black daughters. And this is just, a way for us to make history in Mississippi.
Wow. Okay. Felicia?
Yeah, that is so real. I think a lot about, for me, obviously as a white woman, I think about representation and how much representation matters, and that representation is not everything. So speaking of the Supreme Court, I went to vote today. I've got on my Ruth collar. I took Ruth with me to the polls today when I went to vote. And I'm thinking a lot about the federal Supreme Court. And I'm thinking about the Supreme Court justice that was just shoved through by the U.S. Senate, and the importance of that vote. And it was the closest vote that we have had I was just looking at some of the statistics. It was the closest vote for Supreme Court justice, closest confirmed to an election. And there has not been a partisan vote this divided since 1869.
Wow.
So that tells you something about this candidate or this nomination for the Supreme Court. And unfortunately, Amy Coney Barrett is now a Supreme Court justice. This is a lifetime appointment. And thinking about the impact of that on, what's at stake and what the impact of that is. And particularly thinking now about abortion access, safe and legal abortion access in this country. And there are 17 cases headed to the Supreme Court, and we now have a new woman on the court, but just because she's a woman doesn't mean that she represents women's interests. And so thinking about, what kind of impact that could have. And so it's not just that we're voting on, this immediate impact issues. It's thinking about the long term and what impact, especially the U.S. Senate can have on our lives. And how it's not just about people we vote for; it's about the repercussions of those votes as well. And that has me thinking about abortion access, thinking about the ACA, and affordable health care and access to contraceptives. So, the joke hashtag thanks Obama. Obama opened up access to affordable contraceptives for people in a way that we've never seen in this country. Our unintended pregnancy rate is the lowest it's ever been because we removed the barrier of cost for folks to get access to the birth control method they wanted. And to think that could be dismantled is pretty horrifying.
And I want to talk a little bit later about our next, because we as women, we don't drill on when something has happened and it's a done deal. We don't take our foot off the pedal. We say, what's our next? How do we move forward? How do we go around that obstacle? So I want to talk about that a little bit later. Dr. Thompson.
Well, Felicia spoke a little bit on what really I feel really impacts us on the healthcare side is the Affordable Care Act, the ACA, because it provides a lot of access, as she mentioned, to contraceptives and for family planning. But when we think about just prevention, those things that really keep us well and keep us healthy, when we think about coverage for millions of Americans that could possibly be gone. And so when we think about this is not just for, as you mentioned, what's the next, not just for the moment, but for generations to come, for us to think about what type of health plans do we want to have for our United States of America? What do we want for those citizens to be able to access? And so we know through prevention, we're able to reduce a lot of our chronic diseases that cost tremendously, but also that affects us long term. So with the ACA, we get to have those preventive services for free. We get to have that one routine physical exam. We get to have breast screening. This is Breast Screening Awareness Month, October. We get to have all of those things that are so important to quality of life. And so we have to think about what does that mean in this election for us and our vote for all of those things as well.
Attorney Bridges?
Well, I would just echo what all the other ladies have said. It's important to me that this year I actually know people that are on the ballot. Judge Latrice Westbrook is a good friend of mine, and it's sad that in 2020 we don't have an African-American female on the Mississippi Supreme Court. We need somebody that looks like us, that thinks like us, that can hear the issues and represent us on that court. Mike Espy is a longtime friend of the family, and we definitely need someone of color like Mike in the U.S. Senate. But some of the issues that resonate with me, I am a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden really look good to me, and the issues that they're planning to address, particularly dealing with student loans. I'm an adjunct professor at Jackson State University. I asked all of my students what was the most important issue to them. They said student loan debt. And so that is important to me as well. I'm a healthcare attorney. COVID-19, being able to have someone in office that will address the issue of COVID-19, the vaccine that should be out sometime next year, is important to me as well. So those issues that drive home to our families, our children, our parents, our grandparents, that's what's going to get us out on Tuesday to vote for the candidate of our choice.
Thank you all so much. Those were powerful issues that you all connected the dots to our votes on. And I just want to echo, too, of course, everything you all said. But also, I think I always start this question when I'm asked the question in other meetings and at other tables is, to me, it's all about leadership. We need good leadership that's going to drive all of these issues. And we know if you've been living in this country for in past 15 minutes, you know that the leadership at the top drives leadership throughout this country. On a state level, when it comes to our governors and the decisions they make, a lot of times the theology and policy making on the state level is driven by what is being done on the federal level. So we need to be careful. We think that okay, we're voting for a president and vice president, and that's separate from what was happening right here in our backyard. But it's all tied together. And good leadership is the thing that drives everything that we do. We have to have good leadership. So make sure that you're doing the research. You're making sure you're thinking through. And I tell women all the time, when you're at home, turn left and turn right and see who you're looking at. You're looking at your children. You're looking at your husband, your spouse. You're looking at your home and everything that encompasses that. Open up that pocketbook of yours and look at some of those bills that you just picked up out of the mailbox. And you want to know how you need to vote in November 3rd when you go to the polls. Start thinking about all of those things and not just on the surface, dig deeper. And I tell you, we're going to have much more success at the polls that's going to be beneficial for all of us, no matter where we are, no matter where we stand, no matter the color of our skin, no matter the texture of our hair. We can make good decisions at the polls, and that's what we want you to do on November 3rd. We don't want you to vote a particular direction, left or right. We want you to vote what's good. What's good for Mississippi, for good for United States, what's good for women. What is good for women is usually, I think you can echo this, Felicia, what's good for women is what's good for the country. Okay? So let's make sure that we vote and vote accurately and intelligently when we go to the polls. Now, I want to just talk a little bit about some Pacific women issues and especially around COVID. Now that we're in the midst of this pandemic and look like we're going to be in it for a while, what do you think of that are some of the biggest threats to women, families, and communities while we're going through this pandemic? Dr. Thompson?
Well, one of the biggest threats, I think, going through the pandemic is that we having access also to testing was one of the biggest issues initially. And so when we think about that, having the access so that individuals can be tested so that they do know their status is one thing. One other thing that we have worked hard on and a group here in Mississippi worked toward was finding out what did those numbers look like for all populations and especially how they were affecting minorities. We also know that as we come into the vaccines, as was mentioned by Attorney Bridges, we also know that we have to make sure that that is accessible to everyone, meaning that that's why some of the issues that we mentioned first, like with the ACA and insurance and expansion of thinking about expansion for Medicaid and those that fall into the gap of ACA, how do we cover those people? So looking at the bigger pictures to ensure that those measures are in place. Also understanding that we know they have done an expedition and expeditiously working toward getting the vaccine out in the early part of next year. But we know this is not the norm for vaccinations. Normally they take years to develop and years for testing. So we're seeing where we're falling into some issues with some of the trials. So also, I think we're going going to also need an increase of awareness around vaccinations for individuals because there may be some fear around that, seeing certain things in the media. So we have a lot of things to work toward. And so some of those are big issues for me as a health practitioner, making sure that we make people aware of vaccines, and also dispelling some of the fear around those as they do come. And once they're tested properly, making sure that we're not rushing them to be linked to our particular candidacy or our election period, or withholding certain things based on that, but making it a fair and equitable for all. And so I think that that's one of the biggest issues around COVID for me. Still influencing people and encouraging folks to continue to wear the mask is also so important. We understand what may come by mandates, but we also need to just use good medical and science basis to protect ourselves. And so those are just some of the measures. And I'm just really and thinking about all of that really has a presence on a lot of the decision making, I do believe, because we do need someone who's going to be able to lead us into the right direction. Will anyone on November the 4th have a quick fix? No. That will not be the quick fix, but we do need someone with a plan. We do need people with action and people who are willing to follow suit of what science says and be willing to put in parameters and measures to ensure the safety of the United States of American citizens. So that's the big thing for me with COVID at this time.
And Angelique, the statistics show that women, and specifically women of color, are being impacted by COVID the most. So what do you think are some of the, or at least one of the biggest threats to women and families around COVID?
Well, to me, it's education. I've always, been a proponent of public schools and advocated for schools. So one of the things that worries me as working parents, working mothers, what do we do when our kids have to stay home and do virtual school, and we have to choose work or be at home and be the parent and actually guide them through the curriculum, and then what happens as we start seeing these spikes and as schools start to close down, then again, we're faced with those choices again. If our daycare is closed, if our schools close, we have to be home as parents. And then we also have to be at work to make the money. So this is an issue I see for a lot of working parents and children that are at school. And then also with this going virtual, the access to Wi-Fi, and technology. So we have a lot of issues that COVID has brought to the forefront. So that's just an issue for me, even now personally, because when my daycare closed, I had to choose. And when my schools closed, I had to choose. So these are a lot of issues parents across the state are dealing with.
Yeah. And Attorney Bridges?
Well, accessibility, reliability, communication, education regarding treatment and the vaccination. And I do think that the Women for Progress can play a role here. We need to get together, develop a task force to start to address some of the topics that we want answers to, questions we want answers to in advance of the release of the vaccination. Who's going to be able to access it? Access the vaccination. Is it going to cost? What if we can't pay for it? It's going to be free. What's the reliability of it? What about our family and friends that don't understand medical terminology, as the good doctor stated? We're going to have to develop groups that can go house to house, neighborhood to neighborhood, and explain what is really going on. Sometimes the television and news reporters talk over our heads. Sometimes the representatives from the Department of Health and Human Services and CDC, they're talking over our head. We don't understand the language. So we need to, in advance, start to develop our questions, start to develop our circles so that we can get this information out and be prepared when the vaccination becomes available.
Yeah, that's good. And Felicia?
Yeah, I think all the statistics are showing us, a couple of things. So we know already that the majority of people who are working minimum wage jobs are women. We know that the number of people who are being pushed out of jobs for all of the reasons, that Angelique mentioned, choosing between school and work or childcare and work, like it's women who are bearing the brunt of that. And so thinking about just the women's economic security and the long-term impact on women's employment and long-term economic security, that's the thing that we've got to just get our arms around and keep a really close eye on. And Willie, it's one of the reasons why I just love, you having your hand in every single pie and being able to provide, women with jobs that are not low wage jobs and thinking about economic security. And I think that's something that we're going to have to work really hard on because if we don't, it's going to have repercussions for a generation or three.
And I'm glad you brought that up around jobs because even though jobs is not the only answer, women need all other types of wraparound supports for their success. But higher paying wages, the statistics show over and over and over again that especially single parent households, they need to be making above $35,000 a year. And when I say above, I'm talking about way above. 35,000, according to the Department of Labor, just gets them out of poverty and sustaining themselves and maybe improve their quality of life just a little bit. But they're still struggling, especially if you have two parents. But so we need to look at jobs for women that are in what I think is in the range, and the statistics show somewhere around $50,000 to $70,000 a year for women to thrive. And to really change their quality of life for women. And I want to take this opportunity to say to women, I have no shame in my game by having my stump preaching on when it comes to jobs and higher paying wages. We as women have got to, every day, we need to have some type of conversation, some type of activity engaged to solutions to putting women in higher paying jobs. And when I say women, I'm not talking about just a few over here or a few over there. We have to make it a movement where we're moving groups of women from all walks of life into higher paying jobs that are sustainable. And one of the ways that we can do that is non-traditional jobs, because statistics show that men are in those jobs and they're getting paid at least $60,000 a year or more. And so women, I am just asking for women to really pivot that mindset and say, I want to look at all the opportunities that are out there. And the one thing that I'm excited about, and people say, well, how can you use the word excitement around COVID? I'm saying that we got some opportunities out there that's going to empower women in their families, in these communities, in ways that the opportunities that have not been there before. Workforce training dollars. We got to make sure now that they're being pointed in the right direction, that those workforce dollars is being put with providers that's actually providing skills to work. We know a lot of times women are being put in training, but that never leads to the type of higher paying jobs that's going to make their life and their job sustainable. So we need to really make sure that we're at the table for all those particular conversations around that particular money. And then women need to look at non-traditional jobs. Department of Labor has listed about 10 really exciting ones. IT. You know, sometimes we think IT, well, everybody has access to IT. They can be word programmers, they can be coders and all of this kind of stuff. But women are still single digits when we look at the percentage of participation in IT jobs. And those jobs, after about 6 months of training and more, you can make $50,000 a year. Construction jobs, transportation jobs. There's so many other areas. You want to be an electrician, a plumber. There's so many other opportunities, contractors. There's a lot of options there, and if you want to know how to get access and you want to know how to be us to walk you through, I want you to call Dependable Source Corp, and our telephone number is 601-351-5858. 601-351-5858. We're not just going to tell you about it. We're not going to tell you how wonderful it is. We're going to walk you through from the door to the back door that goes all the way to the job, okay? Because these are real opportunities for women to be able to move themselves to another level. And not just, I mean, I'm preaching these non-traditional jobs.
Can you repeat the types of jobs again? Someone just texted me. They want you to repeat the types of jobs that you're talking about that you offer training.
Yes. And you don't have to ask me twice. Transportation, truck driving. There's a lot of other jobs related around transportation. Just come in to see us. We have a CDL program where you can get your license in just 4 short weeks. We are putting women in these jobs, and right off the gate, they're getting paid. They're in that $50,000 wage range right off the gate, and benefits galore. So those CDL jobs or those transportation jobs, construction. Starting the month of November, we're going to be having a certification program for women who are interested in getting in construction. You have to have a blue card. That's the entry point to every job in the construction industry. We're going to be providing certification for that. And guess what? The very first class in November is going to be free just for women, okay? So that's incredible. So, those, and then we're working on the IT program. But even though we haven't launched our IT program, we can connect you to some other resources, because we know at DSC we don't have all the answers. We're going to connect you to some other. Mississippi Coding Academy has a wonderful program. There's some other programs here in the state of Mississippi that we can connect you to right here in the city of Jackson if you're interested in getting in IT. So, and as again, a lot of women say, well, I called and they told me how to do this, but I really didn't know how to connect to the training. I didn't know how to apply for the job. What I'm saying to you, we're going to walk you through from the beginning to the end, and we're not going to let you loose until you in that job and you got that paycheck going, okay? So give us a call. I want to give you that number again, 601-351-5858, 601-351-5858, and our website is drivingyourfuturems.com, drivingyourfuturems.com, and we're going to do exactly what that website says. We're going to drive your future in the state of Mississippi, okay? So make sure you reach out to us, and we'll be glad to help you. And the one thing that we say at Women for Progress, if we can't help you, we're going to connect you with the resources to do that. So that's
This is Sharon Bridges. I would like to offer my services for those women who are calling. If you need someone to review your resume, help you draft cover letters, I'll be happy to do that, do a practice interview session with you. That's kind of coming down my lane. I would be happy to volunteer my services.
And also on November 8th, Women for Progress, we're going to be having a open podcast where we're inviting women to come in, and we'll put that up on our page and our website where you can get in on a Zoom call, and it's on a Sunday evening at 5:00, a great time for women. We have designated that as a wonderful time for women to be able to get together. We're going to be talking about these particular issues too, and then also we're going to be talking about women's business development, because sometimes we all been in the jobs lately that maybe we didn't like, we didn't enjoy, and now those jobs are going away. So what do we do now that there's an opportunity that's been opened up to pivot? So how do we make sure that we're not spending a lot of time just trying to figure it out on our own? So we want to point you in some directions there. You may want to do a home business. You may want to, as Attorney Sharon Bridges just said, you may need to redo your resume. You may need to revamp some things, and all the way down to getting a good photo so your LinkedIn page looks good. So we want to help you do that. So, but the key to all of this conversation is we have to work together as women to empower ourselves and empower others. We have to work together as women to empower ourselves and empower others. And it doesn't matter what the color of your skin is. It doesn't matter what the texture of your hair. It doesn't matter any of those things. If you're a woman, you need to work together, and you need to always be reaching out to another woman to lift them up. So thank you so much for that opportunity, and we'll continue to share that information too on workforce development, which is so important. So I wanted to touch, we talked about the ballot initiative. Sharon, can you share the Mississippi Initiative 65 and 65A with our audience?
I can't go into depth. I'm still
okay.
driving. But that is the medical marijuana initiative. 65A is more restrictive. And if you have it before you, you can tell the listening audience what those restrictions encompass. The proponents that are for medical marijuana are encouraging the citizens to vote for 65. And that will allow more individuals with diverse conditions and diagnoses to benefit from the medical marijuana. But I will tell you, on Tuesday, Madison, the city of Madison, filed a lawsuit with the Mississippi Supreme Court challenging the initiative being on the ballot, and the Secretary of State had until yesterday afternoon to respond. What they're saying is that you have to get a certain amount of signatures before it could get on the ballot, and those signatures had to come from various counties across the state, and whoever was responsible for getting the signatures did not meet that requirement. So the Supreme Court will be ruling tomorrow on whether the initiative will remain on the ballot or not. So more to come on that. Wow.
And Felicia, I want to talk. We talked about the Supreme Court case in those particular issues. Is there anything else around? I know Planned Parenthood is always out there in on the ground working for issues around women. Share a little bit more about the work that Planned Parenthood is doing, and also anything around voting on November 3rd.
Yeah. So a couple of things that we're working on right now. So I mentioned the coalition that we're working with. There's a large number of us who are just making sure folks get out to vote, and making sure that folks are aware of these two ballot initiatives. So the ballot initiative 47, I mean, the thing about ballot initiatives is that they're always worded in a way that's crazy, and they never make any sense, right? I mean, that's just part of it. It's just part of ballot initiatives. It's part of the way they work, right? And so the ballot measure 2 is this Jim Crow provision. It's a Jim Crow era provision that was essentially put in place to ensure that no Black candidate could win a statewide race. That's the short, and that's the quick and dirty version of what it is. So on ballot measure 2, we're asking people to vote yes to remove that. That is, again, it's from the 1890 Constitution, which we know was put in place to be intentionally racist, and it is time for it to go right along with that flag. So, measure 3 is the state flag. Whether you think it's the prettiest thing you've ever seen or not, I would ask you whether you're more worried about your flag being pretty or racist. And that's, again, the quick and dirty version of it. So we're asking folks to vote yes for that, because we want to get rid of this racist provision in the Constitution, and we want to get rid of this racist flag. And if we don't vote for this flag, the danger is we end up with nothing for a time. But what it does do is give folks an opportunity to sneak some things into a flag. It gives them some more time to come up with a design that may inadvertently end up putting us back in the same spot we were in before.
Right.
So we're asking folks to vote yes on those two ballot initiatives. So I mentioned earlier, I went to vote today. I'm going to be working from before sunup to well after sundown on election day. And one of the things that's really important for folks to know is that we do not have early voting in the state of Mississippi. You may vote by absentee if you meet certain criteria, but we do not have early voting. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because the election commissioner was there today, and she was walking up and down the line to make sure that folks were aware of that. And just to say, remind them, we don't have early voting. You have to have a reason. Make sure you have a reason, because they're going to ask you, because you have to complete an application to absentee vote. So if you plan to go vote early, make sure that you know what the criteria are and you meet them. So, for instance, if you're going to be out of town on election day, if you're going to be working the whole time that the polls are open, if you're going to be, out of the county, but make sure, or if you're over 65, if you're over 65, you don't have to have a specific reason. You can just go vote.
Or if you're disabled, you can, there's that disability.
Yes, or if you have a disability. So, so when I went today, it took me about 2 hours from the time I arrived to find a place to park, to vote, and get back to my car. So also, and I know Hinds County is, we're going to have the biggest voter turnout because we're the biggest county, but you need to be thinking about that when you're thinking about how much time it takes to go vote. So give yourself 2 hours. Also know, if you are in line by 7 o'clock, the polls will stay open until you vote. So if you are in line, stay in line. Stay in line. And that goes the same for this weekend. The circuit clerk's offices will be open this weekend for absentee voting. Stay in line. Stay in line. So get there on time and stay in line. Also, make sure your ballot is going to have a front page and a back page. Make sure you turn it over. All the ballot initiatives are on the back. So make sure that you turn it over, and that you can take your phone in to the polling place. And so if you want to make yourself some notes about who you want to vote for, you can take a piece of paper if you want to, like with your list of who you want to vote for, because it is a long ballot. It's front and back. So make sure that you're doing that. We are calling folks. We are texting folks. We are running digital ads. We've actually got digital ads on in Hattiesburg and in Jackson, specifically reminding young Black women to go to the polls. So we've got ads in Jackson and Hattiesburg targeting those two populations, or that population in those two places. We want young people to go vote. We want women to go vote. We just want you to get out to the polls, because I can't talk about candidates in my role today because I'm here for my job, and so you have to be careful not to talk about candidates one way or the other. But we don't have to talk about candidates to talk about the issues that really matter, and the issues that matter to women and families, and the folks. Because as you said, Willie, and I love it. You knew I would say it. I say it all the time, but women's issues and family issues are the issues. Period.
Yeah.
If we've got healthy moms, we've got healthy babies. If we've got, moms who are housed properly and making a living wage, then, it all comes down to us and what we're able to do to support our families.
And I want to wrap up with our few minutes left to talk about women in public office. And I'm so glad to have Miss Angelique Lee here today. She's being broken into the Women for Progress Radio Network and the show. And so we're glad you'd be here. And when you introduce yourselves, I'm glad you mentioned that you are running for Ward 2 here. And that election is in 2021, but it's going to be right around the corner, just a few months away. And so I'm glad that women are getting ready. The entire council seat, including mayor, is going to be on the ballot for 2021. And so that's so important. It is so important and so exciting when we're talking about that. And I would love to see. Yeah.
This is a special election. Yeah. So this is November 17th.
Oh, okay.
This is to replace Melvin Priester, who resigned. Okay. So it's coming up. It's in 3 weeks.
Oh, wow. So tell us about Ward 2, and tell us why voters need to go to the poll and vote for you, Angelique, on November 17th. And thank you for clarifying that. Oh, my goodness. Not months away. This is days away. So, yeah.
Yes. So this is in 3 weeks. This is, 2 weeks after the November 3rd election. So We don't want you to have voter fatigue after November 3rd. We want you to still get out and vote. This is for your local city council. This is Ward 2. This is North Jackson. This is Woodhaven, Woodley, Valley North, all the way up Watkins Drive, all the way to Presidential Hills and the Queens. So this area is home for me, and it's home for a lot of my family. My Aunt Johnny Patton, she's in Presidential Hills, and we're in Woodhaven, have family in Woodleys. And when my grandmother was one of the first homes that built on Floral Drive behind North Colony. So this is home. I want people to go out and vote for me. I understand policy and legislation. I understand the issues firsthand with crime, economic development, blight, a lot of the issues that we see firsthand, trash, sewage, water bills. So these are the things I want to bring to the council and propose legislation and policy that will really make a difference and impactful with Ward 2. And I plan to build a coalition with community leaders, pastors, church leaders, and school leaders, so that when we go to make a vote, it's not just how I think and what I think is best for Ward 2, but what we as a collective body want to see for our ward. So on November 17th, I encourage and employ everyone to please come out and vote for Angelique Lee for City Council Ward 2.
And that's November 17th, folks. So correction. This particular ward is a special election. Melvin Priester was the one who held that position for quite some time, and to be filling it for that. So that's a very important position that we want people to go out to the polls on November 17th and come back and get that done. And we'll continue to share that to Angelique to make sure people continue to go out because we'll exhale at the end of the day on November 3rd and say, wow, we're done for a minute, but we got to keep the train running. So thank you so much. And
Willie, because remember, if the U.S. Senate race goes to a runoff, which is possible, that will also be November 24th, which is the Tuesday prior to Thanksgiving. So.
Yeah, and you referring to the SB Finch race. And so let's just remember, and I want to shout out to all these the first time registered voters too. We're so happy that you are on board and you get to use your voice on November 3rd. We're so excited, and we want to just remind you to make sure not only that you go to the polls, but you also engage others to the poll. And we need to say that. I mean, we get so excited and we say we're going to go to the poll and we vote and we say we've done our duty, but also our responsibility comes with engaging others in our communities. We got to really power up this thing on November 3rd. I personally feel safe going to the polls. I'm going to be going to the polls. I'm going to take my own pen. As Dr. Thompson say, I'm going to take my mask and make sure I'm masked up. When I leave the polling place, I'm going to have disinfecting in my car so that when I get in the car, I'm going to make sure I use it even there before I start putting my hands on my purse and all of those things. I'm going to do everything I need to do from a planning standpoint to make sure that I'm safe and others that are with me are safe. So let's feel comfortable. Let's throw out all that fear. Let's not let people get us excited that we don't show up at the polls and we feel uncomfortable. This is a serious thing, and don't allow anybody else to take it away from you. You make sure that you go through. We want to see women going in and voters from all over going into that poll like the lion coming out of a forest. You know, we really want to march into victory on November 3rd for ourselves and our families. So make sure that you show up. So my final question to each of you is, of course, women are on the ballot in November. We know we have a vice president candidate that is on the ballot. We have right here in the state of Mississippi, Judge Latrice Westbrook, who's running for Mississippi Supreme Court, and she's on the ballot. And we're going to have and that's going to continue to grow because we need women in leadership. Do you believe that having women in political leadership provides a different kind of voice? And I'll start with you, Attorney Bridges.
Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. We need women everywhere. U.S. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Ginsburg said, we need women at the table anywhere a decision is being made. We think differently. We organize differently. We can solve problems differently. We just need women. I think where there are offices without women, then you're not providing the citizens the best type of government with no women at the table, none at all, So we bring a lot, we manage households. My mother used to always say, she wouldn't just call herself a mom. She says, yes, I'm mom, I'm teacher, I'm counselor, I'm a detective, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, all of these hats that we wear for our families. So without a shadow of a doubt, when women come to the table, then you get more for your money. You really do. Thank you.
Miss Angelique Lee?
Well, we have a unique voice as women. I mean, we have child care issues that are unique only to women. Child care issues, maternity issues, health care issues for our children. We want to make sure all of these things are taken care of, as well as education. So all of these things we as women have a unique perspective about, because we are the caretakers of these children. And so it's always important to have a woman at the table to give that perspective that can speak from the household all the way to the child. So it's very important for us to be at the table.
Dr. Thompson.
Well, I definitely echo everyone's sentiment. Women in leadership we're just better. I'm just kidding. But really, we just have an overall holistic viewpoint where we look more at the whole and not just parts or to break it into fragments. There was a study I was reading recently that showed that companies that had more gender diversity, where women were leaders, actually did better financially. They actually had a higher bottom line. And so I was very, excited about that, because it shows that, as all of the other women have said, we look at things in a totality. We also, because we are the nurturers and the mothers and the women and the doctors and the lawyers and all of these encompass of one, we typically look at it from a generational point of view as well. We look at where will it be next. We're always looking for the next. We're always looking, how do we plan? So if we think about us, we're always like, how we lay the clothes out at night? How do we prepare the next meal? We're thinking of the next steps. And so we're constantly pivoting, as you mentioned, Ms. Jones. And so I think that that's important when it comes to leadership, being able to do the balancing of multiple tasks at one time. And so all of that helps. And I think it's so important that we find that in today. I'm excited about the pink and green on the ballot as well. I'm excited that we get to have this representation. I'm excited that we get to see a representation for our young daughters and girls coming along. I think that that's also so important. But I also see that it shows that we have other opportunities. And I'm so excited about what you're saying you all are doing at Dependable Source Corporation, because we can be contractors. We can be anything we want to be. And I think that it's all about having the availability to us and letting us know that we can. And we can fly a plane. We can drive an 18-wheeler. We can do it all. Right. And so I think that when we open up that to our young girls, it then allows such a great world of opportunity. And so I'm excited about the new horizon. I'm excited about what's about to emerge. And they're excited about opportunities right here in our own state through Dependable Source that women have because I do believe out of this, I'm excited too, in this, that new businesses will develop and people will find their niche. Sometimes we become comfortable in where we are, and so sometimes circumstances can open us up. And so I'm looking forward to seeing more women on ballots, more people running businesses, more people owning companies. So I'm excited because we can make the bottom line greater. It has been statistically shown.
Okay. Miss Felicia.
Look, I mean, I think it's been said, like, if we're going to better the world, we're going to do it through us.
Yeah.
That's it. The data bears it out. And I think, and we have to be careful not to fall into the trap that just because somebody's a woman that woman is going to support women's issues. So, I think we've got to be really careful about it. And also, the only reason there are not more women who are elected officials is because we have had barriers in front of us to keep us from getting there. And we can get as deep as y'all want to into the heteropatriarchy and the white supremacist systems that keep us there. But I feel like, there's drinks to be had this evening, and so we don't need to go down that hill. But there are systems in place that have kept us all out, and let's take our sledgehammers to it. I mean, we're here to do this. We have all the skills. It's just that there are barriers that have been put in place, and we're going to break them down, and we're going to do this together.
And I'm going to wrap up this statement by saying, echoing what Felicia said, that there's been system and barriers in place that have kept us having more women in leadership roles, and specifically in public service. And some of those barriers look like you and I, right here on this screen today. We have been hesitant about voting for women, about supporting women. And I'm going to say, let's forget about it. We're not even going to have any shame game on it. We're just going to say we're going to do better moving forward. We're going to support women, not only with our resources and our time, but we need to support women with our pocketbooks, as they say. And I use the word pocketbooks. You women know what I'm talking about. Not your purses, but your pocketbooks. So we need to support women in that way, because that's what they need to get across the line. Because we know a lot of women, when they throw their hat in the ring, they're giving up. Some of them are giving up 2 jobs. They may have a law degree and a practice that they have to give up. And then they may be holding other roles. And then they're taking care of their homes and their families. So we need to support women and provide wraparounds for them. And I'm so excited that Women for Progress has relaunched its PAC in 2020. So we're going to be looking for support from our community to raise money to help support more women and men who are running for office that support our issues. So when we give you a shout out and send that donate button to you, make sure that you click on it. Even if you're only giving $5 or $10, know that it's going to a great cause. That's not only because, as I like Women's Foundation of Mississippi say, when women thrive, everybody thrives. So we want to make sure that we put some support behind that as we move forward and do this thing a little bit more strategic. I want to thank all of you all so much for being part of this conversation tonight. If you're a woman out there and you're listening to the conversation, you say, yeah, I like what those women are talking about. I want to lend my voice to a roundtable discussion. We want you to reach out to our executive producer, Miss Juanita Brown. You can email us at mail@womenforprogress.net, mail@womenforprogress.net. Or you can text us at 601-259-6770 with your name and cell number and your email address and say, I would like to join a future roundtable discussion. And what I like about these roundtable discussions, they're at the preference of our executive producer. So she may throw in one at any time. So you need to make sure you get your information in so that she can add you to the list. And go to our radio page at womenforprogressradio.com, womenforprogressradio.com. All of our podcasts and our regular programming is there to make sure you tune in. We want you to like all of our pages. Make sure that you stay tuned in and engage in these particular conversations. The podcast that we're on, as I always say, is probably everywhere you get your podcast. At home, I'm so tickled to say that I even get it on my Alexa. So in the morning times, I say, Alexa, play Women for Progress Radio, or Alexa, play the Working Woman Report. And she pulls up one of our archived shows from previous shows. So we're everywhere on Spreaker Radio, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, on all of those networks. Just Google our show, and you'll be able to go back and listen to some of our other programming. And then we have live programming like this every Thursday at 5:30, where we're having conversations that lead to real solutions and real good information. Want to remind you again, really party day is November 3rd. Nobody likes to miss a party. So you got to show up. You got all day to get there, from 7 a.m. in the morning, 7 p.m. in the evening. You can come in any time you want to and be part of that party and do your thing all day long from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And the great thing about the party, you got to bring folks with you to have a good time. So we want you to bring voters in groves. Make sure that you're texting, getting your 10 to 20 people that you're going to be engaging with. Text them reminders, and just don't text them and say go vote. Tell them to hit you back and make sure that they give you some type of confirmation. Take a picture of themselves at the poll, text you that they voted. You need to get confirmation. As I think the young people say, you need to get some receipts so that you know that they engaged with you and they did what they said they was going to do. Not that you don't trust them, but this is the one day we need to get confirmation, okay? So make sure that you go to the polls on November 3rd. That website's again, or vote411.org, vote411.org, with ballot information, all the information on what the requirements are for absentee voting, and you still got time to do that. Or vote.org, or go to your Secretary of State website at sos.ms.gov/elections. And Miss Angelique, we wish you success in case we don't talk to you again before November 17th. You'll be on the ballot for Ward 2 for the City of Jackson Council, Ward 2, in a special election for November 17th. So be careful out there doing your campaigning. I know you'd have to do a lot of that virtually now, but we love to see women on the ballot, and we love to see when women throw their hats in the ring. So we say kudos to you, and thank you so much for giving of your service and your time and all of your effort to make sure that we empower the City of Jackson. Attorney Bridges, we love you so much. We love the idea that when we call you, you always say yes, yes. So thank you so much for being part of this conversation tonight.
Absolutely. Okay. You know, I can't tell you no. So anytime.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm going to make note of that. Okay. So thank you all so much. Dr. Thompson, we didn't get to the health matters, but I think you covered it. You gave us so much great information. And thank you so much for all that you do for our community at Magnolia Health. And thank you so much. All of you ladies are wonderful. Shout out to Miss Juanita Brown, our executive producer, who pulled this conversation together for us tonight. Thank you so much, Miss Brown. She's been our executive producer. I like saying this, for over 10 years with Women for Progress Radio Network. For Women for Progress Radio Network, with an organization that's been in place 43 years this year, empowering our community. So this has been the Women for Progress Radio show and radio network. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.